that at Startup Grind, we don't pay our speakers to come here, but they pay us with their time. So, who wants to explain this? Anybody wants to explain how this works, how we welcome people on stage in Startup Grind? No? Huh? Music first. Can we have the music? If not, I'm going to dance without music. Yes, we got the music. Cool. So we're going to stand up. We're going to be clapping as if Jordi Miró, CTO of Wacky, was the biggest rock star ever. Thank you, Jordi. Welcome on stage. Woo! Oh, wait. Show me. Can we... Can we get a beer? Can somebody bring us a beer? Carlos? Hi. Cool. Welcome. You're so powerful, Jordi. You need to control your strength. Oh, can we fix the micro? Is it?
It is. There we go.
Yeah. That's the. Are you nervous, Jordi? How many times have you been welcomed on stage as a rock star?
Quite a few.
Quite a few.
No. I don't know. I've never counted. But I love being here. I know quite a few people in the audience. We've been trying to do this for a while. Alex and I have been. In fact, Marsbase is also a provider for Wacky. So I hire people from Ironhack. Marsbase is a provider. I know some of the people in the audience, so it feels like being home.
Feels like being home. Yeah, there's a lot of familiar faces, especially the guys at Ironhack. I really thank you guys for coming, because 20 people from Ironhack, that's quite a big number. And they also wanted to come from a long time, because we don't do events in English normally. And it was like, yes, this time we can come. Cool. Let's introduce Jordi. He's probably very familiar with this thing about being welcome on stage as a rock star, because he used to play in our orchestra. Maybe you want to talk about that before we delve into Wacky.
So that was my next, we are three, and my sister in the middle, she started playing piano. And I thought, shit, I like music. I heard a lot of music, started when I was a little older than my brother and sister, and started playing the flute. I decided I wanted to play something that was not very common, so I played the flute. I did my career, played in duos, trios, small camera orchestra, and then I played in a big symphonic orchestra, and taught me a lot of things. One of it is being on stage, team playing, rehearsal, work, and also having the chance to do your solo. So I think it taught me a lot of how to work, and I'm very proud of those years. Nowadays I play a little bit because my kids are starting to play piano and violin, so I'm trying to play a little bit with them.
Cool, thank you. So I will introduce him. Besides being the founder of Mixik and FitTrace, a couple of startups, Jordi joined Wacky when they were slightly over 10 people in the very early stages of Wacky, and became their CTO. You will later explain how does one become not only Wacky, but also how does one become acquired by a big company like Rakuten. And so he also accompanied the growth, so he knows how to scale shit up. And that's why he's coming here. Besides that,
trying to.
What other great things have you accomplished in life that have gotten you the reward of being here on stage with me?
So my wife and my two kids, the first thing. It's the best startup I've ever created. My co-founder, it's amazing. She handles all the things that I don't do well, and she's raising, with my little help, to amazing kids. I studied physics, nuclear physics, and I wanted to work in the nuclear industry. For whatever reason I didn't, and I started working in something that in our startup scene is very bad scene today, which is big consulting firms. And it was a very good lesson, working with big banks, big projects, in the .com boom, where we could charge $2, $3, $4, $10 million to a company. Nowadays that's impossible. And also seeing how we were wasting resources. So being on the very big side taught me a lot of things, and also what I wanted to do. So it got to a point where I found my wife, decided to marry, and moved out to Venezuela and the States, and decided to start a startup.
Besides that, besides your entrepreneurial career, you're also an investor. You're also a consultant, you're also a social media nerd.
Yes.
And you're also a Real Madrid fan. One couldn't be perfect, right?
Well,
That's your only defect?
It depends how you say it. I mean, I'm called Geordie. I was born in Madrid.
Jordi Miró, Bruges. Couldn't be more Catalan.
So couldn't be more Catalan. So I have some, I would say, identity issues. But of course, I support Real Madrid. I'm Espanyol supporter with 2 season tickets.
One doesn't say that publicly, Jordi.
I'm very proud of. I mean, I'm not from a big team in Barcelona. I'm from a small team.
From outside, of course.
But of course, I do investment. I was helped several times in the different startups I created by business angels, friends, family, and fools, bigger funds. And the little money I've made throughout these years, couple of acquisitions, I try to give back. I do some angel investment. Some have gone well, others, that's investment. If you want to be sure, you buy some kinds of bonds, treasury bonds or state bonds. They're worth nothing, but you won't lose anything. So I like some risk, and I like to hear ideas, to hear projects, to know people. The investments I do normally are more based on gut feeling and the people on the team that on very complicated metrics. I work with several startup accelerators in order to do my investments, and I'll keep doing it.
Cool.
As long as my wife allows me, I'll keep doing it.
Cool. Actually, I wanted to know a little bit more about that. So what kind of startups do you invest into, and what do you take into consideration?
So normally they have to be on, I would say, the internet. I don't do physical investments. I've been approached to do from bicycle factory to sunglasses. The only thing I know a little bit is about internet and media. So any investment I do has to be related with that. Has to be related with things I can add some value, not just few thousands of euros. I want to be capable of advising and helping growing the business. If not, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it.
Cool. Did you find any of the pitches that was really appealing to you? What did you think in general of the open mic pitches?
I love the concept. I love the concept of being capable of saying, this is what I do, this is what I'm looking for. And then the good thing, you have the networking. So if anyone wants to know a little more than what you can say in 1 minute, you'll approach that person, or you'll be approached, and you have a chance to further explore that opportunity.
We're sort of becoming like the Tinder for entrepreneurship here. We're connecting people, making shit happen.
That's great. I mean, Tinder is doing amazingly. I would have loved to invest in that.
Yeah, yeah. Me too. I'm just making sure that no babies come out of this. But you know, you can never make. Cool. One of the things I wanted to say, the pitches were actually very sharp tonight. They were really good. Thank you for that, because we haven't had to boo anybody. We're really good on the timing. Have you got any good advice for pitching?
I think that you should be yourself. I've seen a lot of pitches where people are trying to copy, and I've read all of them because I did the same while raising money. So what is Fred Wilson advising? What is Ron Cottonway advising? How to do your pitch? That's great. Get the idea, get the knowledge, but at the end you need to be yourself. So put your soul, put your who you are into the pitch. If not, it's going to be like a canned pitch, and it's going to be more of the same. So investors, accelerators, business angels, they get a lot of emails, LinkedIn, pitches. So how are you going to be remembered by this guy who's receiving several of them? The only way is be yourself. If you're not, of course, when the pitch or the PowerPoint is very pretty, it's easier to remember. And that is when you see, when you have a bigger company, my presentations tend to be more on the engineering side. So I would say they are ugly, they are very precise. If you go to the design team, they'll create you an amazing presentation, very beautiful. But what you need is the message, the heart. Why are you asking me for money? Go to the bank. So you want my money, you have to put your soul in what you're asking for.
Cool, thank you. Let's start from the very beginning. Actually, we acquired this question from our audience in like the 3 last events, and we always save them for last. But I find it really relevant today to ask it at the very beginnings. If you were to give advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to the 18-year-old Jordi right now?
Never give up.
Never give up.
Impossible is nothing, which I love from Adidas. And know where your limits are. Especially when you're young, you tend to think that you can do anything, that you will succeed, that you are better than anyone else. You can be very good, but I mean, Einstein, there was only one, and it will be very difficult to find the next one. But you have to know your limits, and you have to know who to look for to complement yourself. But never give up. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. If you think, there was a blog post yesterday from Fred Wilson that he's one of the smartest guys I have had the chance to meet several times, and he was saying, if the strategy is right, the execution is very easy. And I replied him, might not be easy, but if you have in mind what you want to do, how you want to do, go for it. Work as much as you can, but also knowing your limits. And also there's a time that you need to accept failure. And it is very difficult to accept failure. And in some societies, it's easier than others. But I would say never give up. Keep pushing for it.
Cool. Then let's go for failure, because this is something that we also ask at the end of the event, and now that you have brought it up, can you tell us one personal failure that maybe you want to share? If professional.
Yes, of course.
Just one.
So closing your company hurts like hell. Having to tell your employees there's no money in the bank and you cannot pay salary next month. How do we do it? Do you want to work for free? Do you want to work for a while to see if we get new customers or we get some funding? And having to get to the point to say, I'm sorry. It's done. The investors are not putting more money. All my money is gone. My wife is not allowing me to spend any more money. I'm sorry. We need to close this. I still remember closing the office. Hurts. It remembers a lot of memory, a lot of people who trusted you. Of course, the clients are important and you're leaving them behind, of course. But the most important thing is those people that have worked with you night and day, weekends, to make that profitable. And sometimes you fail. You have a very good idea, you may be the very beginning, or you execute it poorly. And it gets to a moment, there is no more money in the bank, you have to close. You try to sell all the assets that you have to try to give back something to your investors or to yourself or to your employees to pay that month. And that moment that you go and you use the key, you close the office, you go with the key to the landlord and you tell him, here it is, and I'm sorry, I owe you this month, there is no money. But that's an experience that helps you a lot. You learn from it, and sometimes, or I would say normally you learn much more from the worst times than the good times. When everything is going well and it keeps going, it's easy. When it's tough and you need to take big decisions, cuts on the company to the point that you close it, it's tough.
Cool. That's really strong advice. And I wanted to know whether you could talk a little bit about, because we've been talking that you were the founder of Mixic and Feed Trace. We're going to be focusing on Wacky obviously tonight. So maybe you want to go through your experience there.
So,
and what they were.
What we did is, I met up with my co-founder who is living now in New York, and we wanted to work in video. I started working on pictures, and very fast I realized that I fell in love with video. I loved how to mix several images, put audio, and that led us to work on video. We pivoted our business several times. We went for funding in the States, and they were telling us, I'm sorry, this is the post-YouTube area. We've been sued by any big company, so we are not investing in video at this moment. So we pivoted that until we created a very sustainable business that allowed us to create, we were kind of an incubator. So we had this business that was very profitable and allowed us to create other lines of businesses. And the other one we created that we sold was, that was 2009, we were getting all the Twitter fire hose, all the data, and we were analyzing tweets with links. We were interested in tweets with links. We were not interested in the rest, because we thought that the links carried much more information, and we were doing semantic analysis on the content of those links. So we were creating verticals of information, gossip, sports, politics, and it was automated to create those portals, but also junior guys trying to create the news. And one of our competitors saw an advantage by acquiring our technology and part of our team and sold it. Then we sold the video part, and I found myself with no work. A US visa, no work, and I said to my wife, what am I going to do?
Can you put a price on that visa?
No, I mean, I didn't know where I wanted. I know where I didn't want to live, but I didn't know where I wanted to live. So I ended up at Wednesday telling my wife I'm going back to Madrid for a few days, and Barcelona. I'll meet some friends, and I ended up in Wacky.
Cool. So how does one become the CTO of Wacky then?
It depends.
Can you tell the story?
I joined Wacky employee number 5. We were around between external people and full-time employees. 10 to 11 people. So being CTO when the team of technology is 2.5 doesn't mean a shit. You are serving coffee, you are deploying code, you are looking into the database. I would say, not the oldest one, but the guy with a little more experience than the rest. So at that moment you try to survive. You try to not even scale. You try to make that life. We were starting the process to raise our first round of funding, and starting putting a little technology and the systems together to go for that.
What year was it?
2011.
Oh.
I joined Wacky Monday, 25th of April 2011,
right.
And I still remember it because I left Caracas the day of my saint, the 23rd, and the 25th, which was Easter Monday, I went to the office, and at my family they couldn't believe it, but it's bank holiday, and said, well, that this is a startup, we work on bank holidays. So we were very lucky. We got funding from 2 very well-known VC funds in Spain, Axon and Bonsai, which helped us start growing the team, growing the technology, getting more studios on board with their content. When my wife came to Barcelona, she was complaining a lot that our catalog was very poor, which, to be honest, at that moment it was. Our look was the old brown and orange look, which you see it with 5 years distance, and it's like, whoa.
Time machine.
It hurts a little bit. And we started growing that to that point. And 2012, one morning in 2012, I get an email from our CEO telling us that we have a visit from someone called Hiroshi Mikitani. And it was like, Google, who is Hiroshi Mikitani? Whoa. So I went to the next, our office had 2 rooms. I went to the next room and I said to our CEO, and he was doing exactly the same. Do you know who this guy is? He's a very important guy. Rakuten is not very well known outside of Japan or Asia. They are the 3rd largest e-commerce company in the world, competing with eBay and Amazon. But outside there, it was not very well known. They started their internationalization project by acquiring a lot of companies. And he told us, okay, we have just closed the round of funding, we're going to use the same pitch. So no worries, we know the pitch very well, let's do it. And that was the start of our getting to know each other.
There might be a couple of people here who don't know Wacky. So I take it that everybody, or mostly everybody here, knows Wacky. Raise your hands if you know Wacky. Yeah, okay, but there I see like 10 people who don't know Wacky. So what's your pitch?
So Wacky, I would say it's very easy. It's the old video club we used to go on Fridays to rent movies, or even to acquire second-hand movies on the internet, and mostly focused on smart TVs. We took that big gamble in 2011, thinking that smart TVs were the place to enjoy content. We think that if you want to watch content or long format content, you don't want to do it on a small screen. You want to do it on your big TV, lay down on your couch, enjoying with your friends and family, and that was a big bet. Nowadays it's paying off. They are our best customers. The last 2 reports we got this week from different consulting, international consulting firms are showing that that's the path to go. So if you go to Smart TV, we try to be there as close as possible to the first click you do. And there in Spain we do rentals, electronic sale through, which is you acquire the content or subscription. In the rest of Europe, we are now present in 13 territories in Europe. We do mostly rentals and sales. We try to be what is called the media or the movie industry has the windowing system, which is you're on the theater, then you are on video clubs or places like us, then you're in Canal Plus, then you're in Telecinco, then you're in public TVs, and those windows can block one to another. So we're trying to be in the first window, in the closest one to the cinema, even in sometimes going live the same day that's in the cinema. So we're trying to be the place to enjoy the new releases on a smart TV with the best experience.
Cool. Jordi, let's get into the CTO role, because you're actually the first CTO that we have here at Startup Grind. You said briefly that being a CTO of a 5-people company doesn't mean jack, but it could be worse. It could have been 3 people. That would have been, or 2, than being a CTO. When does a CTO become relevant in a company?
I don't believe in titles.
Yeah.
I don't believe. I think that titles are important, organization is important, but what is important is to know what you need to do. So when you are 3, most probably your CTO is someone who's coding.
Exactly.
That's it. Coding, putting up servers, databases, and so. As you grow, what you want is to have different types of skills. In our case, I remember perfectly, we had 2 guys in backend and myself. First hire we did was someone in systems. We needed someone who knew more on systems than me and could run our servers for us. Next one, we didn't have anyone on UI UX, so we hired our first UI developer. So as the company grows, you need to detect where your needs are, and your real needs, and your needs for today and for the medium term. It's much easier now than we're looking at several years distance. At that moment, your focus might be shorter. So you need to be very careful on which are your picks. Your resources are limited always, but when you're smaller, even more. So your role at that moment, it keeps evolving from maybe being, there are CTOs at bigger companies than ours that their best developer is their CTO. That's not my case. But you need to give the strategy to the team. You need to define the technologies you're going to work. You need to define the architecture with your architecture team. You need to define which are the best picks at every moment and how to increase your team. That's where I see it. You have to be, you don't need to be the best at everything, but you need to be like one of my preferred soccer players, Raúl. You need to be, or Xavi, you need to be almost out of 10, 8 at everything. You don't need to be number 10 at just one thing. You need to be someone consistent across the board and who can help in many different aspects.
Cool. So what would be your definition of CTO then?
Chief Todo Officer.
Chief Todo.
Which means
Chief Todo or to do?
Todo.
Okay, not
which
to
means everything.
Chief
so
everything.
And it depends in the phase of your company. But I think that you need to be the one on the technical team who anyone can go for advice, who you can handle discussions at mainly any level. You might not know exactly how to code it, but you've done a lot of these things, so you can provide guidance to that team. You need to also take, as the company grows, other roles, budget, recruiting. I think it depends a lot on the size of the company and the stage of the company.
Cool. How many developers are here tonight? Developers, raise your hands.
How many are looking for a job?
Exactly. There are quite a few companies hiring here.
Okay, so we're competing, and that's one of the things, we're all competing for the same resources. And one of my points of view is the language doesn't care. There are some companies who, we all have our stack. Wacky's stack is mainly Ruby on Rails. We use other languages, but it's mainly Ruby on Rails, which can be a good or a bad decision. It depends how you see it. And normally companies tend to choose their technology because their first engineer knows that technology. That's why Wacky is Ruby on Rails. Our first developer, before I joined, knew Ruby on Rails. So, and I tend to think that unless you do something very specific that you need a particular language, most of the modern languages should fit to develop what you are doing, mostly if you're on the web or the apps area. So we're competing for those resources, and it's hard. And it's not hard here at Barcelona. It's hard worldwide. There's not enough resources. In Rakuten, we hire hundreds of developers every month. Our development unit has around 5,000 employees in Japan, so 5,000 engineers. And there's not enough engineers to do what we want to do. So at the end, you need to be smart. hire the Messis, Ronaldos when you can, and hire the intern when you see some potential. And if they don't know the language but they have the skills, they'll learn. That's it.
Exactly. One of the things I wanted to cover tonight is there's a lot of companies trying to compete for the same resources, right? So you guys are Ruby on Rails, and there's Cantox here, there's Novicap, there's Red Booth.
I can tell you
there's many more.
How the engineers are flipping around in the city.
Exactly. So how do you go recruiting them? What's your advice for recruiting them?
So I see there's like two kinds of developers. The mercenary one, who will look for salary, which is okay, and they can do a very good career. Or three types. The mercenary, and the one who loves a product or a platform or a system and will stay with you even if you don't pay in the top band of the salary, but they love what they do, they love the company, they love the product, they love the team. And then there's, at least in the Ruby on Rails community, what has happened a lot is developers have found that they can make a lot of money by going freelance. There are very good examples out there, from going freelance to creating a small companies like these guys, that you can be your own boss. And I think that not everyone is suited for that. Not everyone is ready to. You have to be mature, you have to be smart, because then if you're a freelance, you have to sell yourself, and projects go away, and then you might be several months without working, so you need to have money in the pocket. So how do we do it in our case? It's by product. It cost us a lot in the beginning to hire because we were no one. No one knew Wacky. We were the newcomers. So there were companies in town like Xing who pays a lot. And they're doing extremely well. But we're trying to hire, and it was difficult. So by growing, by showing the community that we're doing things well, by attending the different Ruby on Rails meetups, by sponsoring some of the Ruby on Rails events in Europe, by bringing, for example, the first time or the second time Mats, who is the Ruby creator, came to Barcelona, we brought it. And we brought it because he has very good ties with Rakuten in Japan. And all of a sudden these guys know a lot of Ruby. No, we were lucky. He's a Rakuten employee. And then we also had the chance, and who is still working with us, Xavi Noria, one of the Ruby on Rails core team developers. And when Xavi decides to work with you, it's because he sees something that he likes. So it's like a stamp of certification. These guys are doing something well if Xavi is working with them. So to the point that nowadays, I wouldn't say it's easy to recruit because there are not enough resources, but it is not as difficult as it was in the past. We were 3 or 2.5 when I joined. Today our development team is around 70 people and growing. And if we could, we would grow more. But it's getting easier.
Have you found yourself in the occasion that there are not enough developers, or you just can't find them, but you have created developers?
So we have recycled developers.
Yeah.
We have hired. So now one of the latest hirings we've done is a lady, someone new from their past, and she's an amazing developer, but she had done everything in PHP in the past. And if you tend to think between Ruby on Rails developers and PHP developers, there's not much love in between.
At all. They don't deserve it.
Well, I don't know. I even code in COBOL, so.
Oh my God.
My point is, if you have the structure, if you have the knowledge of what is object-oriented programming is, if you have the skills, it's like learning a different language, and it's not like speaking. It's like you have the skills, so now you need to learn how to write. The syntax is different, but concepts, patterns, technology, architecture, it's the same. Doesn't matter which language you're writing with. So we have hired people from there. We have hired people with no engineering background whatsoever from, I would say, literature world. But they did Ironhack, and we thought they had the concept. So I was given once an opportunity to work in a world that was completely different to what I studied. I studied physics, and I started working in e-banking. What's the relationship? None. Someone thought that my analytical skills were good enough to train me. So if you don't find the resources, create them, recycle people, hire people that you see the potential, and you'll train them. At the cost that they might leave. Yes, they might. You also change one company to another once in a while, so don't be afraid.
there's another thing. There's a shortage of developers, but there's also a shortage, really critical, of CTOs. Everybody comes to me at least 3 times a week asking for a CTO. You're more rare than unicorns. Where do you find a CTO in Barcelona?
It depends what you consider a CTO.
Yeah. Well, most of the cases is the guy that needs to code my application, but not that one. We're talking about 15 people in the company.
I think that what you're looking at the stage is someone who can sit with the developers, speak their language, help them create their methodology, help them understanding that the marketing guys are not their enemy. Sometimes they are, but they are not the worst thing that can happen to you. Because it's very difficult to translate business needs into engineering tickets, and that the output is what the marketing guy was expecting. So you need someone who has, depending on the company, several years of development experience, several years managing teams, and who is a leader. You need someone who's capable of guiding your team. And I would say that's the most difficult thing, because geeks, we tend to be weird. We tend to be different kind of people with very little social capabilities, difficult to make ourselves understand to our colleagues. It's very easy to make us understand with a few coding lines or on a chat, but sitting together face to face, Alex, this is what I need you to do. This is the requirement. Let's translate this requirement into code, but that the output fits the requirement. So what you're looking is for someone at that area with development or engineering skills and with social skills, because he will have to be that liaison between the other teams and your team, who will have to teach both the external and the internal on how to communicate, which is the methodology, the flows that you're going to use to deliver that product. And I tend to see our engineering teams as a service to the rest of the company. We need to deliver what the company needs, but also we need to tell the company sometimes what they need. Don't tell me how to do it. Tell me what you need, and I'll tell you how to do it. Because a lot of people have been working in other technology companies. They tell you, no, in my previous company this was very easy. You add the field on the database and it's done. Doesn't work that way. Maybe the technology was different. Maybe we are different. So tell me what you need, and I'll tell you how to do it.
Cool. How many people here are looking for a technical co-founder? Because there's a relatively often pattern here in the open mic. Nobody? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. This is not the bingo. Like, come on. Hey. So, what would be your advice for these people? The people that are looking for a technical co-founder and cannot find it. What would you do in that occasion?
I think there are. And one of my best friends is doing the same. He's not here today because he's traveling. I think you can go 2 ways. One is start attending technical meetups where you will be very bored because they will talk about programming languages, databases, very weird things that I don't even understand sometimes. So you'll be seated there for an hour, and you then will have to talk with people that maybe that relationship skill is not that good. There are other ways to do it, which is, can you find, there are a lot of firms who can help you start the project. You can find someone who can get your requirements and help you set up that starting point. I know from quite a few companies that are doing that, are trying to be the interim CTO for you, and they will help you start that project, and they might even take that role in the future. Or come to this kind of meetups where you might find someone who is, if it is for me, I'm not.
That's not the way you turn it off. Can you take like the bag, if you can identify the bag and take it to the bag or something?
Guy, just not here.
Okay. Can you just take it outside of the room or something? Okay, thank you.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
It is difficult if you're not. And then another way I've seen it is, I've seen from different accelerators where they are willing to take the idea, take that, and create the team for you. I think it's difficult. It's easier if you come from the engineering side, where you are most likely, you can put some of the coding, and maybe you have a friend on the business side. I tend to find it that more easy than the other way around.
When you're the nerd.
When you're the nerd.
Okay.
And if you're the nerd and you know, and you have some skills to build it for yourself, you can start prototyping, then you have your questions because you're not very savvy in business, or you go to your friends from university, from your brother, and so. I think that is easier than the other way around. You have the idea, and at the end, ideas. We all have ideas in this. If you put now a whiteboard and everyone has a business idea, the problem is execution.
Cool. Let's go into the technical part of the. You briefly mentioned the tech stack at Wacky. Can you describe? Obviously, the reason is what the first developer always defines a tech stack, but what has brought you an advantage to the other competitors, maybe working with this tech stack?
I think that the good thing of Ruby is that allows you to deploy web applications very easily and very fast. I love Java. I still miss my Java virtual machine. That's why there's
garbage cleaner.
That's why you have JRuby, which is amazing. We've evolved a lot. We started with a traditional rack in a data center. We have everything on the cloud, on AWS. We moved from schema and database to different schema that we use today with different masters and slaves. We moved from one only single storage to different types of storage depending on the thing that we do. We have created our own framework to develop smart TVs applications. So we're trying to find the best technical solution for the different things that we do. So we have a website, we have an API, REST API, or not very REST. One of the things we've learned is that trying to be very, how do you say it? Very exact to the definition of what a REST API is doesn't suit us, because we have different type of devices trying to consume the same endpoint. So we are not REST 100%. We have then different front ends: smart TVs, web, mobile, gaming consoles, set-top boxes. So we try to develop for the best technology for all of them. In fact, we are now redoing all our website, which is going to be based on JS instead of the traditional Ruby on Rails application. The same thing with the systems. We used to deploy servers by hand. Now we use Puppet. We are introducing Docker to help us do that management. So we are evolving. As we grow and we have people with more talent and time to explore, the stack is evolving. There's of course, there's a layer that's going to be very difficult to change, but that stack is going to be there.
Actually, on Monday when we met, you mentioned that your plan when you got acquired by Rakuten was to be on 4 countries in a couple of years, something like that, and then you became active in 13. How did you scale that?
And then we said, okay, when we launched, it's very easy. When we were already very complicated. When we launched UK, what we did, because we didn't have time enough, is we duplicated the infrastructure. So we had Wacky Spain and Wacky UK, and we did something we called Wacky Common, which some of the services we could centralize. So we ended up with 3 configurations in our cloud service, 3 different ways of accessing everything. It was running. And one morning we said, okay, we need to launch more countries. Sorry guys, this doesn't scale. So they came to me and said, maybe now you need the time that you were not given when we launched UK. And I think, yes, the problem is, at that time I needed 6 months. Now I think I need 9 months. So we merged all together and we started working in something that we call multi-market. And we call it markets because a market normally is more than one country. Might be little, might be bigger, but for example, when we talk about the Spanish market, it's Spain and Andorra. When we talk about Italy, it's Italy, San Marino, Vaticano. And it might seem a stupid thing, but when you have geographic contracts and that you need to respect, you need to know the geolocation of all your users. And we need to know their IP, we need to know their credit card was issued in order to allow them to enter the content or not. So we said we need to introduce multi-market. It's very easy. One new column in every table of the database and we're done. It seems a little more complicated when you start reviewing that you have a lot of code that has been developed almost in 3 years. Took us a while, and we introduced the multi-market concept. Good enough. Then you say, that's for 4 countries. What do you do when you go to 13? So you don't want to scale your company by 10 times. You don't want to have 10 times the employees you have today to do 10 territories instead of 9. So we've been working intensively in how to automate processes, how to make the life easier of our employees, how a guy who is managing the UK content can do at the same time UK and Ireland, how we can pre-populate things so that the guy just needs to accept instead of doing everything by hand. How do we, from a technology point of view, the infrastructure gets old and performance gets worse, so there's a way of scaling, put more money, put more servers, but that's not very sustainable, and if the money was yours, you would try to improve it. So we will be releasing soon a new API, a new new backend infrastructure, a new API. The front ends will consume this API, and we're taking the time also to change some of our front ends. And one of the main things that we want to do is to increase by 10 times, I don't know where we'll get, but that's the goal, to increase by 10 times the performance we have today. That's why we're putting a lot of hours on engineering. And we've proven we can do things like this. We've multiplied several times the traffic and usage this year to the previous year without spending any more dollar than the previous year in infrastructure. So you can double, triple, quadruple your traffic and not spend more money if your code and your architecture and your infrastructure are more or less well thought. When you scale that to tens, hundreds of countries, you need to rethink everything, from processes to technology to architecture to people, because it's not sustainable if we grow from 150 that we are more or less today to 300 to do double the countries. It's not going to scale.
Actually, just wanted to ask, because you've got a multi-language and multicultural team coming from different parts of the globe. You've got different providers, you've got freelancers, you've been changing your team a lot. How does the code, how is the code affected by that, and how do you solve it?
So,
I mean, one of the pain points is changing provider. Normally it's like, oh my God, like they will not understand.
Everything, we've been very stable with providers for the last 3 years. I would say we have around 3 providers we're working on the development side. On infrastructure side, we've been working for the same one for the last 4 years. On CDN, we have several CDNs to serve our movies, but mainly one, who's doing 90-something% of our traffic. So I think that choosing carefully your partners helps a lot, because you don't switch from one to another. Of course, your engineers will shift, but if your architecture is well thought, well documented, which normally when you start you don't document many things, and it pays off. Because when you recruit new people, and I don't mean that you have to have the Bible written, but the minimum things so that when you land off a new engineer, he can get to speed easier. So you need to have your basics documented. The code has to be properly documented and tested in a way that you define your rules of development, and you make sure that people follow. It doesn't matter if you have your rules and no one is looking at that. In our case, what we do is we do something very easy. We don't invent anything. It's code review. So you do your code, you submit your pull request, and you need at least 2 people on the team to prove that code is good enough. And there are very interesting battles amongst the developers saying if that's good enough, if that's over 120 characters per line, should we accept that or not? But sometimes it's very on the fundamentals. This method is not properly created. You're using a pattern which is not suited for this problem, or this algorithm could be rewritten on a different language or in a different way that it's more effective. So by educating your younger engineers or less talented by the people who know more, you will get the benefit, because everyone will grow, and that code, of course, if you've been working on that module longer than others, you'll know it better than the others, but you're going to take vacations, and that module is going to fail for sure when you're on vacations. So you better write it well, you better document it well, and you leave the tests appropriate, so that when the fire is there, someone can jump in and modify it. It's Christmas, it happens.
Or deploying something on Friday afternoon.
Shit.
Okay.
That's forbidden.
Jordi, one very interesting question, and very relevant for people here who are looking for a job. What do you offer for developers? What's the company culture of Wacky TV?
It's funny because the movie was on last night at Televisión Española. We call ourselves Spartans.
Spartans, yeah. I've seen that.
And I love, yesterday I started the movie with when Leonidas is going to battle and his wife tells him,
300 you're talking about?
Okay. 300. Yeah. Come back with your shield or on your shield. I mean, go and battle.
Yeah.
Make it home. If you don't make it home and you come back dead, you better have put the best of your fights.
Yeah.
So we try to think ourselves as Spartans, which means that we are, how do you say it? We're very proud of what we do. We love what we do. We fight for it. We fight with the biggest enemies possible, Netflix, Amazon. They have thousands of engineers. We have 70. So we multiply, or we try to multiply ourselves several times, which sometimes also you cannot multiply by 100. But the attitude is we're going to fight for this. No one believed in us in 2011. It's 2016, and we're still here. And some of the companies who were in the middle, who thought they would defeat us, are gone. We're here, and we will be here 10 years from now. I'm sure of that. Might I not be here, but the company will. Why? Because if we can maintain that culture, it's going to help us all. It's going to define who we are as a company. So that has also helped that the different teams in the company, we work together, which in the past sometimes was more complicated. Now it's like, and you'll go to our office and there are several 300 posters around the office, and sometimes we have a monthly team meeting last Friday, so this Friday we'll have it, and we bring the people abroad to the office, and you will hear ahoo, ahoo, ahoo. So it's not a joke. It's like it's within the spirit of the company.
Cool. That's very great. Let's go to the last set of questions before we begin with the Q&A part. I wanted to know, there's a whole deal of people here in the audience that they want to quit their jobs and probably join Wacky, right? So where else?
Email me.
or probably start their own venture. What would you say to these people? What would be your advice for people wanting to start their own adventure?
I mean, if you know what you want to do, go for it, as I said before. Be passionate, be focused, go for it. Look for people who can help you in the areas you're weak. Because we are all weak, even though we don't like to admit. And I tell my kids that I'm perfect. I'm not. But they're 5 and 6, so they still
You're
believe.
a Madrid supporter.
Well, that's my best thing. But aside from that, if you're not going to start your own thing, I always say to the people in the office, I don't go to the office to make friends. But I see them more than my wife, my kids, and friends. So choose very wisely what you want to do. Choose very wisely what you want to spend 12, 14 hours a day doing. Choose the product, choose the team, choose the company. Investigate about that. Investigate, if you're on the engineering side, how do they work? Is that those practices that they are doing what suits you? Because I don't like waterfall methodologies, but there are companies out there doing it, and they are very successful. So be clear on what you want to do, which is the kind of company, the kind of team, and look for it. There's plenty of companies, small to big, and on the engineering side, we're all recruiting. Everyone will recruit if they had the chance. So be very sure on who you are and what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Cool. Thank you. From your business perspective, because you are not only an advisor but also an investor, and also you created companies. You've lived in the States, you've lived in Venezuela, in Madrid, and here. We're very concerned about taking Barcelona to the next level as an entrepreneurial ecosystem and make it become a leading city in entrepreneurship. What do we need? We're not there yet. What do we need in your opinion?
So the first thing is we need politicians to stay away from it.
Yeah, that's quite
I'm sorry.
Common opinion.
What I want is, I'm not asking for favors, but what I'm asking is, please don't put more barriers than the one that I need when I'm starting my company. And if they could do something which I found out in Uruguay, which I love, is that my taxes go along to my business growth. That would be amazing, but I'm not asking for that.
Yeah.
I think that Barcelona has a lot of potential. I mean, I came here, even though, as you said, Jordi Miró tends to be a very Catalan name. I was born in Madrid. I speak Catalan because my fathers are from here. But we have a very unique set of things that differentiate us to other cities. And I hate when everyone is trying to create the next Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is there, and there's not going to be another one. New York is great for other type of startups, London, Berlin. Why can't it be Barcelona? I think that we have a lot of potentials. Weather is amazing. Culture, food. Unfortunately, Barcelona FC, but that's a pain that you have to live with. So I think that, and it attracts a lot of people from abroad. The sea is here. If you want to ski, it's a 2-hour drive. So we have an ecosystem that is suited for it. From a salary or from an economic point of view, with a tenth of what you need in London, New York, you can start your startup here. There's a lot of money going through the city. There's a lot of business angels, VCs. We have a lot of local support, from the Barcelona authorities to the Catalan ones to the Spanish ones that are funding our projects. So what do we need? And the Catalan people have always been very entrepreneurial from ages. It's not in other businesses. But so what do we need? I think to believe in it. And there are plenty of success stories nowadays in Barcelona. I mean, there's a lot of people who have risen a lot of money. There's been very good exits. So there's a culture, and a lot of the people who have done those exits are either starting something new, they are starting funds, they are doing, I mean, look, Carlos sold again, and he's creating a new fund. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of people doing that, bigger or smaller scale. So I think that what we need is start. Don't compare us to other cities, but believe in what is our differentiating point. Empower that and build on top of that. Don't compare ourselves to Berlin. They do amazing things, but their weather is shitty.
Yeah.
So let's use that we have. Let's use that we have an amazing weather. We're having outside just by the fact of saying. So last week I had 12 different CTOs from the Rakuten Group here. Yeah. There were people from Toronto, Cleveland, Washington, Japan. Of course, when they saw that we are 3 blocks away from the beach, that it was January and it was 14 degrees, which is not the normal case, but even if it is colder, it is sunny. Yeah. They are asking me to open a development center here. So we have to use that.
Cool. Yeah, I am one of the opinion that, and you are a Real Madrid fan, so you will understand the Barcelona ecosystem is kind of like Guti. He's showing a lot of potential, but never explodes, right?
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, yeah, but he likes to party a lot, so that's why we like him. But would you think that if there was more conscience put into learning English, doing business in English, or events in English, would we change that situation?
So Wacky started in English.
Help me here.
No, that's why I'm going to put it simple. Wacky started in English because we were crazy to think from the beginning we would be international. So all our documentation, all our code, everything was in English from the beginning. And we all spoke Catalan or Spanish or both. So why are you going to complicate yourself by doing it in English if it's not your native language? We all had experiences in the past living abroad, so we said it to ourselves, thinking little to the future. If we want to bring people into the company in the future, it's going to be very difficult before what I said before, which is you need to document things, this and that, is in Spanish or in Catalan. It's going to create a barrier for the future. So we said from the beginning, of course, the meetings were in Spanish or in Catalan, but everything is documented in English. So now we have people from, and Jordi might correct me, our PR director is there, 20, 30 nationalities at the office, around 20. So from Japan to the States, going all to the middle. So when they land and they can start with all the documentation, all the product definition, all the technical definitions, all the business contracts are in English. I would say that even We changed that because we needed by law. But even our business proposals to our employees were in English. I mean, it was like the default language to be. Our meetings are in English at the office. And now that we have so many people that are not Spanish speaking, we also offer them the option to learn Spanish, and we offer all our employees the option to learn English, to improve their English. There's people who learned English, school or whatever, and they read it very well, and they write it quite well, but they have not had the chance to live abroad. So oral communication is difficult. So we're trying to help them. You have teachers, we have speaking lessons. So please benefit. It's for the good of Wacky, but also you as an employee or as a future entrepreneur to have those skills. So if that is more extensively used in other companies, in other areas, in other meetings, in other things, would help that those international talent are going to join us here in Barcelona and empower that ecosystem, because they will find, of course, if you stay here for longer, you should try to learn our languages to be more integrated into the society, but that would help them land, establish, and grow the ecosystem.
Cool. Going totally off topic before wrapping this up, Jordi, you're a social media addict. You should treat that. But why are you using social media that much? And in which social media can we follow you?
So I started using social media, which depends what we call social media, no? But I'm a Twitter user since 2005. Facebook, I think it's 5, 6. I'm very public and open on what I do. I don't censor myself very much. I share what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, what I'm smoking. And I love it. It's part of my natural life. There are ones I like the most. I would say that the 3 social networks I use the most, or social, it's Twitter for sure,
Swarm,
Instagram, and Swarm or Foursquare. I love from Foursquare or Swarm. What I like is the gamification, the fact of getting coins, getting stickers, getting to compete with you, with my friends, to see if I can end the week at #1, which I never make it, even when I'm traveling to Japan.
Are there any Swarm users here? I know quite. Yeah, there's Ricardo over there, Gerard, and somebody else. Only 3 people. Don't ask him. You will never be in the top leaderboard. Never.
And then I love the way Twitter has changed the way we exchange information. I would say that by default it's my preferred social network. How communication has changed, has evolved, how do we share it, communication. And I love Instagram for the pictures. I've been taking a picture of my kids, taking them to school for the last 4 years while they are walking together, grabbing the hand. So I have like 400 pictures, 400 to 500 pictures of their bags. So I get a lot of complaints from my family that why don't I show their faces? I don't have any problem because I show their faces any other time, and I post them also on Instagram. But I have made a collection of those pictures which will be there for my kids for the future. I like sharing.
Well, is there any social media tip you would give to the people here in order to create personal brands?
So I would say, be real, be careful. There was a guy that was hired by FC Barcelona like a month ago that was fired because on his social network he was saying very bad things about FC Barcelona.
Yeah.
You might like he was honest, but then he was closing the door to the second biggest club in the world. These things happen, so be careful. Your boss might get upset at you because you put something there that you shouldn't have posted, or you post something that someone interprets wrong. Be careful, but share whatever you want.
Jordi, last question. I know you're enjoying this, and so we do, but what's your useless superpower? Everybody has got a useless superpower. What's yours?
Accepting that you have superpowers. So
besides being a Espanyol fan, but there should be another one.
I'm too proud of myself.
We can see that.
I could take sometimes a little more It's good to be very proud of you and what you do, but sometimes you have to be a little more humble.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. Big applause for Jordi.